Greetings there. One of the reasons atheists advance vis-a-vis their claim for the non-existence of a God, of a supreme deity, is their fact, or the fact, depending on what angle you're looking at it, that you cannot prove that God exists. So those who believe in God cannot prove the existence of God. And in all fairness, that is a very, very strong argument. I give them a tick there. In all fairness, how do you prove to the five senses that God exists? You cannot do that. And let's just understand what we are talking about. Proof is facts, evidence beyond reasonable doubt. Beyond reasonable doubt. That's the barometer. So in order to prove to somebody, an individual, that God exists, you have to show him God. He has to see God. That is irrefutable proof. Not even irrefutable proof, because even if he sees the person you refer to, or the deity, or whatever, you need to really prove that there are no other deities than that. So you some sort of have to summon the entire universe, the billions of galaxies that exist, and get a unanimous yes to the fact that that being shown to whoever is God. How do you do that? It's not possible. You have to prove to the person beyond reasonable doubt that somebody speaking to him is God. How do you do that? You can't prove it. There's no way you can prove it. And whenever believers in God are faced with this argument, they waste a lot of energy trying to defend what they cannot defend. You cannot prove it. How do you prove it? What they end up doing is just leaning to their books, their holy books, to prove the book. So you go to the book and use it to prove the book. That's very flimsy. There is no proof of the existence of God. You cannot prove it. That's why religion talks of belief. You just need to believe. And what's belief? I think Hebrew defines it well. I think it's Hebrew 11:1. I think so. I may be wrong. Somewhere around there. That's conviction of things you cannot see. You're convinced. You're just convinced of things you can't see, you can prove. Now, whenever you're faced with this argument, what you have to do is to reverse the question to the person asking you this question. You need to ask atheists to prove to you that God does not exist. And how the hell do you prove such a that's massive. The burden of proof is beyond reason. It's beyond imagination. How do you prove God does not exist? You cannot do that either. You can't do it. How do you do it? You cannot prove God does not exist. That will require that we surely all of us get to the beginning. How do we do that? I don't know where things started. Scientists claim hundreds of thousands of years. Religion claims it's just about 6,000 years. Get to that beginning and see for ourselves how things started, how they came into being, how matter came into being from nothingness. You cannot do that. So neither those who believe in God can prove God exists. The burden of proof is sheer madness. Nor can those who claim God does not exist prove that God does not exist. So it's a baseless argument. Now, the fact that you cannot prove that something exists, does it mean that thing does not exist? Let's take, for example, consciousness. Does consciousness exist? Yes, we are conscious beings. Can you prove consciousness? Can you prove it? Can you define it? Does energy exist? Yes, energy exists. We all are even energy in different states. But can you really prove what energy is all about? Can you prove it? You could attempt to define it, but can you prove it? That's beyond reasonable doubt. So it's a baseless argument. Whenever you're faced with this argument, just give a no. You cannot prove it. It's a waste of time. And reverse the tides to the person claiming God does not exist to prove that God does not exist. He too can claim it. So it's a baseless argument. That's why we go by belief. Just believe. You're convinced. Because things, matter, cannot come into being by itself. Time cannot come into being by itself. Space cannot come into being by itself. There must have been an eternal force that brought these things into being. Religion calls it God, science calls it, nature, Big Bang, whatever. Whatever that thing, that being is, it must be eternal, and it was there from the beginning, and it brought matter into being. We'll never know what it is. Those things remain mysteries. Maybe by grace, when we cross over to the next dimension, we will get to uncode those mysteries without doubt.